So if you're like new to the Zenless Zone Zero, or you just want to check out if the game is free to play or not, the simple answer is yes. There's no paywall behind the content, and there's no paywalling the progression. You could go through the story and all the event without spending a dime. And as for the gacha, the amount of pool is also pretty reasonable, and you will be getting about slightly less than one limited character per patches. And with the nature of the gacha game, you don't own all the characters that you want, but there's a game mode called Hollow Zero. You could try the limited characters there to see whether you like the character or not. But you are more likely to click into this video because you are familiar with the game and wonder if the endgame content is still clearable with the free-to-play account or not, despite all the clickbaity thumbnail that the algorithm keeps feeding you. The answer is still a yes. But who really cares? We only cares about if the game is still goonable or not. Zenless Zone Zero might not be the #1 gacha game, but it's definitely the #1 gooner game. So the term HP inflation has been tossing around in the community for like a while. Lots of content creators talks about it. I myself also talks about it. But I do want to point out that HP inflation is an oversimplified term to describe the spikes of difficulties in the game, and it could be misleading when you are looking at the game monodimensionally. And I'm talking about no other content creator than the Clown Tontus. This is probably the most embarrassing moment within the Zenless Zone Zero community. All he did was looking at the increasing HP of the boss over time, failing to account for the progression of the general account. Because everybody's account gonna progress and they're gonna get stronger over time. So they gotta make the game reasonably hard, cause the game was too easy back then. And I do think that is also because he was so lost into the desperation of coming up with the baby title, and that's why he got it so wrong, and probably too long period of a time. Anyway, with that said, these two videos from Average Luck Gamer and Kettei the 7 are legit. And no, I'm not being hypocrite, it's because of the timing. There was a huge spikes of difficulties increase during that period of time. And everybody feels it. I also feels it. And I could prove it. Because I do have the numbers to prove this. And in fact, they compensated immediately on the next deadly assault. And I will get into the details later. I can't really speak for the Shiyu defense, because I don't really find a reliable way to measure the Shiyu defense, but I could do that reliably on Deadly Assault. And to be honest, I don't think there's much issue with the Shiyu defense, cause I could still get it at like under 4 minutes on my first try for the last 3 or 4 Shiyu defense. So the ideal way to manage the HP inflation is to have it at the levels that align with the power levels of the general account, so that the player wouldn't feel the game is getting harder and harder indefinitely, because the erupted increase of difficulties also mean that players are getting pressure to pull for a stronger character rather than the character that they like. There are 4 things that would decide the difficulties of the game. Like, 1 is HP, obviously. The second is the power levels of the general account. Like, let's say everybody magically get a Mindscape 6 Miyabi and Mindscape 6 of everything right now, the game would be too easy. Like, of course, it's one of the factors. And I do think to use the 1.0, or are you able to clear the game with the A rank agent or not, is a terrible way to measure the difficulties of the game. Because that's not how most of the people play it. It's actually one of the most sweaty approach to the game. So if you're doing this, I do have great respect for that. Because you kind of have to understand the game like inside out to be able to even achieve it. But I do think that is a terrible way to gauge whether the game is too difficult or not. And the other most obvious thing is the stage buff. like you could pick different kind of buff during the Deadly Assault, but it's not necessarily the best for your account. Like this Deadly Assault that we are having right now, it doesn't have any anomaly buff. So the current Deadly Assault is less favorable to the anomaly build. And of course, the design of the boss around the weakness and the mechanics, that is highly favorable to the current banner. But I don't think people actually have problem with this, and I do think it's a good way to design the game, because that would make new player having much easier time to get started with the game, because the banner is highly favorable to the new character. So of course, they're gonna pull for the new character. But if you are like really new to the game, I would suggest you to hold on to your pools for the Ye Shunguang, the upcoming Void Hunter. The main issue is how they design it to deny the existing character. Like Alice, Jane Doe, or even Miyabi are like one of the least optimal choice in the current Deadly Assault. They got exponentially weaker, not because they are weak, because the boss is designing against them. And the fourth thing is something that people doesn't really talk much about, but it's the ownership rate of the certain character. And I believe that Miyabi, Yixuan, Yuzuha, Astra Yao, and even Lucia got like 80-90% ownership rate. Like having one of these characters and without them is like night and day different. It's like playing completely different game. You could rant about all the waifu pool all you want, but people would convince themselves into pulling for the stronger character. With all the factors that I just listed out, none of them works as a good measurement of the difficulties. The only reliable measure that you could get is the percentage of the player that could clear the Deadly Assault, whether it's 6 star or 9 star. And you could get the number easily from the Hoyo lab, and this is my score now. I try to get the number as close to the 50% as possible, because you couldn't get the number that is higher than 50%. Sorry for the bad explanation, but generally, the number up there mean that what kind of percentile that you are at. And this is my previous season, by the way, so that you guys know that I'm not exactly sucks at the game. But this number here means that I'm the top 8% player in the Sunless Zone 0. And this one shows that my score is currently at the top 48%. And this indicates there are about 50% of the player that could get more than this score. So I try to get my score as close to the 50% as possible, so that I could get the right number for the data. And I've gathered this number for over the last 2 months, and here is what I got. So this is the number that I recorded myself, the amounts of score that could achieve by 50% of the player base. And sorry if I skip one of the Deadly Assault here, cause I didn't expect myself to make this chart. But I think the number should be about the same as the last Deadly Assault on the 8th August, cause there wasn't a huge lashback on the difficulties at the time, even though it's still a speculation. And before we proceed, let me explain my chart a little bit. So basically, the higher up the numbers go, the easier it gets. I think if there are like more than 50% of the player could achieve 67k, it is more on the easier side. And I do think if it fall around this range, maybe 63k to 67k, I think it is fair and reasonable. But when the number falls at somewhere around here, maybe about 62k to 60k, I think this is where they're touching the borderline. But I do think that when there are like 50% of the player base that could achieve 9 star on the Deadly Assault or maybe 8 star, I think the game is still free to play, even though it's more on the sweaty side and try hard side. And I would consider that if there are less than 50% of the player base that could achieve 60k score, then I think it's fair to say that the game is pronounced as not free to play. So let's continue. So the worst we get is at here. This is when Average Luck Gamer, Kettei the 7, and including myself, has made bunch of videos about the HP inflation, cause the difficulties is real. We all feel it when we play the game. The video that Average Luck Gamer and Kettei the 7 made and pretty much any other content creator made at the time are legit. because it does reflect the difficulties at the time. But on the next Deadly Assault, we got probably one of the easiest Deadly Assault we have ever got. They compensated and make it so much easier. It's probably one of the easiest Deadly Assault that we have get for a pretty long time. And I think I was the only one content creator that actually called this out, because I actually tested this out. But still, people still talks about what happened here. But in the end, I don't blame them. It was the game dev that break the trust, making it harder than it's supposed to be. So of course, people would get traumatized by it and still remember about it. And as you can see, dev normalized it and even makes it easier on the latest Deadly Assault, but the sense of distrust is still there. Despite how people's perception toward the game, the difficulties of the game has been normalizing since the first initial spikes of difficulties I'm talking about here. I don't think there are a lot of things to argue about this, cause the number is right here, and on top of that, you only need 6 stars to get all the polychrome from the Deadly Assault, and having 7 to 9 stars as an extra challenge with a little bit of reward. So I do think the game is definitely at the healthy state. It's just something that I want to point out. And I don't exactly overlook the problem of the disparity of not having some certain character, like not having Miyabi when fighting the Bringer. But really, other than this, I think the game is still at the healthy state and totally free to play. Anyway, the HP inflation incident has already ended before people realize it, and yet I still see some video talks about it. And I just want to point out that it's already over, even though it doesn't guarantee that it's not gonna happen in the future. And I do think that if the endgame content irritates you, you should really pull for the Void Hunter and her signature weapon, along with a dedicated support for the Void Hunter. And I do think this is a really good banner design to just tag a Void Hunter as a clue for you to know that this is a strong character. And then you could pull for whoever you want. But if you're not pulling for them, I have a huge respect for you for being a dedicated casual, cause you don't actually lose that much from the reward of the endgame content anyway. Maybe as much as 3 to 5 pulls. Anyway, I just want to set the record straight, and don't forget to like and sub. And about the update about myself, there are just so many things around my life that need my full attention at the moment. And me making this video doesn't really mean that I actually have time, but I just want to spit this out just to get it off my system. It's actually the subjects that I really want to talk about. Just like Stanley publishing the Spider-Man just to get his system out. Except that mine is just yapping for 10 minutes. And yeah, I gotta say that life is pretty hard for me at the moment. But I do think everyone has their struggle. But hey, at least I'm not alone. So definitely hang in there if you're also not in a good spot. And I will be going on a long hiatus for the next 2 months. So this video is my last rodeo before that. I could be back sooner or later. It is what it is, but I will definitely be back. And yeah, that's about it. See ya guys.